So the crypto market isn't really looking great today, despite the fact that we just had a rate cut last week. Everybody was really excited about it and they were really bullish on Bitcoin. But of course, as usual, I was here saying that this is not really something to be too excited about because the charts are saying otherwise. The charts will always be the most important thing to me in this market. I don't care about the news. So in today's video, I'm going to be looking at how far the market can go in terms of dumping and if the dump is even over and whether or not we should still expect altcoin season. So if this is something that you're excited about, make sure you smash the like button, subscribe, share, and do all that nice stuff. Okay, so let's get into the charts. All right, so the last time that I talked about Bitcoin and I was looking at this particular chart on the 4-hour time frame, I was looking at this rising wedge, and as you can see, the rising wedge is currently playing out perfectly. Although I got stopped out before because I entered the position quite early. I made an entry here and placed my stop loss somewhere around here, and I got taken out only for the market to return. So obviously I got back in, and the market has ever since taken a massive drop to the downside, and I expect prices to come to 107k at the very least from this move, because look at the heavy downwards move here. Now this is what is going on here. This is a rising wedge, right? And you know, the rising wedge is usually a bearish indicator. The rising wedge is usually a bearish chart pattern indicating that, you know, prices are likely going to drop, and what is going on here is more or less like a rally. And if you remember very well, in that last video that I made that day, I was talking about Bitcoin being in a move like this, like we were having this here. This was the move that we did, and I was saying that basically us being in this area here basically means that we are testing supply areas again, and likely prices are going to drop further down to meet this point here, right? And that is literally where we are currently. Prices are seeing a rejection here in the supply area around this place, so likely we are coming back to this area here, which is at 107. So what we want to see is, we don't want to see, if you're bullish on the market, then we don't want to see Bitcoin get below this level, because anything below 107k would be an official breach of this trend line that has been holding all the way since, you know, the beginning of the bull run. This is the major trend line here. So if we breach below this trend line, then we are definitely going to see much more downwards price action, and it will eventually start looking like maybe this may be the top of the entire bull market that started in 2022, even though people like to say that the bull market is starting this year or started this year. I don't know how you guys put it, but the bull market started since 2022. I'll keep saying it until everybody understands this. Now this is on the 4-hour time frame, but let's go to a much bigger time frame so that we can get a broader view of what's actually going on. Now this is Bitcoin on the 1-week time frame, and this is the trend line that I was talking about just now. This particular trend line that we've been holding for the entire bull run. This trend line has provided significant support for Bitcoin. We had a bounce here at 26k. We had another significant bounce here at 50k. We had another one here at 73k, and then if the market is going to be bullish, we're going to have another bounce potentially at 107k at the very least, but at 107k around here. Now if the market stays bullish, then we're going to have a bounce here at around 107k, around this region here, and that would just further continue the uptrend, which would make a lot of sense. But you know, we can't reach that conclusion yet until we see it happen. And if we look at other confluences like what we have here, which is this stochastic RSI and MACD that I like to look at, as you can see very clearly, let's start with the MACD. On this weekly MACD, we had a bearish cross here, very evident, very clear. As you can see, we had a very huge bearish cross here on the weekly time frame, and this is an indication that markets are bearish. Like, it's not my opinion, it is what has happened quite a number of times in the past, so it would be really foolish of me to ignore it. The market flipped bearish once this cross happened, and each and every time that this has happened in the past, it has always been the case. You can see here I can go back in history for, like, it's the same thing. So obviously it's not something to joke with. And the only time that the market flips back to be bullish is when the prices get as low as this midpoint here, which is 0. So until this MACD here gets to 0, you shouldn't really be expecting anything bullish on Bitcoin. And some altcoins may pop actually, but for Bitcoin, I think Bitcoin will keep dragging everything down. If altcoins are going to pop, they're going to pop for a bit. Some of them popping just here and there, but if you manage to catch anyone, you want to take profits immediately, because for as long as Bitcoin stays bearish, everything is likely going to keep crashing. So this is on the MACD here. There's a little bit of hopium here though, and this hopium is coming from this stochastic RSI, or still on the weekly time frame as well. This stochastic RSI recently had a bullish crossover, and that was what led to these 2 green candlesticks that we printed in previous weeks, like 2 weeks ago, because of this bullish crossover here. But if you look very closely at this MACD here, it's not unusual for us to have this bullish crossover after a massive crash in the market. Look at this here. Same thing happened here, but then we ended up printing a double bottom, and this was the ultimate signal for buys. Here, look at it. Like, maybe it wasn't the ultimate signal for buys, but it was an indication that the bearish momentum was significantly reducing. And when we had this third touch here, it was the final move. Let's look for another scenario. And if you look at this here, you see very clearly here that when we had the crossover to the upside here, we still ended up dropping anyway. Look at this. Even after crossing above here, we still ended up dropping lower, and the market just kept on plummeting. And it's very, very similar to what I think might be happening right now. And we may just get a bearish crossover here, especially because of the fact that the MACD here is still bearish, and everything is still bearish, to be honest. So if this MACD can just stay at this level here while Bitcoin consolidates here for a bit, or maybe even drops to 107k, but does not drop too harder than that, then it's obviously a very good sign. But if Bitcoin keeps dropping and the MACD is even barely moving at all, then it's probably going to get a lot worse, and we may have in fact seen the top of the market. But I'm going to say this though, I think there is like a 60 to 70% chance that Bitcoin may have topped out, and we may not see 125k again, and we may not see 124k again. Keep in mind, I'm not saying this is the fact. Besides, I don't control the markets. It's just my opinion, but this is how I'm really saying it, mostly because of what I talked about in the last video. I talked about the market cycles and where we are currently in the cycles of the markets. I'm going to go into that shortly, but I think it's very possible that even though the market may have not topped out, and maybe Bitcoin still goes back to 125k or 124k, I think the possibility of Bitcoin going higher than that are significantly reduced, because of the fact that we are getting to the point in the cycle where taking profit will not be a terrible decision at all. And a lot of people are currently still in disbelief, believing that Bitcoin has not topped out at all, and the market will probably keep popping eventually, and this is probably just a correction. Well, I'm not of that school of thoughts. I don't think that's the case, but I don't control the market. Anything can happen, and I could just be terribly wrong at the end of the day. Regardless, we are all speculating, so we want to see what happens eventually. But my major concern here is when we go to the monthly time frame. Now, on the monthly time frame, we have something different playing out. On the monthly time frame, it is a very, very scary situation, because looking at these same oscillators, which is the confluences that I like to use, looking at all of this is a clear indication that the market has approached its peak. As you can see, this thing has been rising all the way since, look at here, this was January 2023. This was the bullish engulfing that we had, the monthly bullish engulfing that we had to sweep out all this liquidity here, and what led to the entire bull run. Literally, that's ever since then is when we've had this huge rally to the upside. Now this is getting extended, it's getting really overextended, and prices is due for a correction. It really looks like it's due for a massive correction, at least a correction to the midpoint here, maybe around 50k or 48k probably, to retest this, to use this previous high, which is the top of the previous cycle, as a support level for prices to continue upwards. I think that has been the structure of the entire market since, even here, as you can see here in 2017, we had the market peak. We had the market peak at 19k, and then in the bear markets, prices came all the way to test that area to find support here and go up. So probably that's what's going to happen if the structure remains the same. It's likely that, or it's possible that we'll see the market drop to these levels here in the bear market to find support. So around 50k would be a very, very good buying opportunity, in my opinion, for this market. That's a very, very premium entry point, in my opinion. And if Bitcoin ever gets there again, I will sell everything that I own to buy Bitcoin. I'm joking, obviously. But yeah, that's just the way I see the market right now. However, there's still a little bit of hope somewhere, especially for altcoins. Looking at Bitcoin dominance. So looking at Bitcoin dominance on the on the monthly time frame, we have something very, very interesting. And this is the simple fact that on looking at these same oscillators that I like to look at, we already had a bearish cross on the stochastic RSI and also the MACD, and usually this is an indication that altcoin seasons are in a good position. Whenever we see Bitcoin dominance drop, it means altcoins are gaining faster than Bitcoin, and that's obviously a good sign. That's what altcoins holders want to see. The more this happens, the more altcoins will rally. It's very, very similar to what happened in the previous cycles that we've had. Anytime you see this happening here, look at this huge dump here, it means altcoins are exploding. So that's still a possible hopium for the market. But one of the reasons that this may not even play out the way we are seeing it is simply because of the fact that the market condition, where we are currently, the way the market is right now, it's not necessarily the same way it was in the previous cycle. In the previous cycle, we had, at this point in time, we had about 11,000 or 10,000 altcoins, at most 15,000. Now we're having close to 11 million altcoins. This means that the money in the market is are spread across a lot of altcoins. So we may not necessarily see all of them growing. So we may not see all of these altcoins popping like that and moving crazy, simply because there is not enough money to push all of them. Unlike the previous cycles where there were not really a lot of altcoins, now we do have a lot of altcoins, which means we need more money to make all of these altcoins pop. And that's something that I'm entertaining. And if we go to the weekly time frame on this Bitcoin dominance, it begins to make more sense. Now on the weekly time frame, you can see very clearly that we are starting to find support, just like I had been talking about since, on this green line here. Now this green line is a very, very strong support level for Bitcoin dominance, and it has tested as a support level in the past several times. Look at this here, huge support here that shot Bitcoin dominance back to 72k. Same thing here, short Bitcoin dominance back to 73k. So these are the things that we need to pay attention to. And from looking at this right here, it looks like we may be finding support here again. So if this is the case, then Bitcoin dominance could be shooting back all the way to this point here. But what we want to see, if we want to see altcoins play out, and if we want to see this bull run continue, we want to see a rejection here at this point, maybe even as high as here, to be honest. We want to see a rejection at maybe 63k and 63% for Bitcoin dominance, and then a drop back to 49%. But if that doesn't happen, then and we keep seeing a rally to the upside, trust me, the entire market will probably be in a state of, we'll be going through a lot. The markets will be going through a lot, literally, and that's going to be really, really bad. And if we look at things like these oscillators, they are really, really supporting this thesis right now. Look at something like this stochastic RSI that is literally just finding a bottom here. So this means this could be an indication that the drop to the downside is just starting, and this is the weekly time frame. Same thing with this MACD here. we are beginning to show that, you know, the drop to the downside has reduced in terms of the Bitcoin dominance. It has reduced significantly, or it is reducing, and you know, it may be flipping to the green side, which means Bitcoin will start gaining higher than these other assets. So I really think this is definitely something worth paying attention to, especially if you're heavily invested in this crypto market. And we'll keep watching these charts to see how prices are going moving forward. Now, looking at something like ICP, which I had been talking about for a while now, look at ICP. ICP has actually broken this support level, which means, you know, we could be heading to this 3.4 area, which would be the best buying opportunity for me for this particular asset. And you know, if prices right from let's look for the peak in this market here for ICP. It was actually December of 2020, no, April. It was actually April of March of 2024. If that was the peak for ICP, then ICP so far has been down by 79%. And if it comes as low as here, we're looking at 3.4% for ICP. We're looking at 83% for ICP, and if it gets as low as, you know, this green line, this green zone here, which is a massive support area for ICP, then we'll be looking at over 85% crash for ICP, which would be a very, very, very good buying opportunity. So I would definitely be looking into buying ICP if it gets to any of these regions. For Ethereum is currently sitting at a very, very huge resistance area, and this resistance area could literally, you know, continue dropping to the downside, and Ethereum needs to hold this trend line if it's going to maintain this price action. But as you can see, I don't think Ethereum is going to hold it. I think this trend line is going to break for Ethereum. Ethereum is not in a good position. If anybody is telling you that, oh, this is the best time to accumulate Ethereum, it's not true. Ethereum is in a terrible state right now, and I don't think this trend line is going to hold. So if this trend line doesn't hold, we could be looking at Ethereum dropping as low as this level, 2,390. So if you're in Ethereum right now, I would really suggest you you know, consider taking profits, even if you don't close out on the entire thing. But you should definitely consider taking profits on Ethereum right now, as the market is not favoring buys. This is the best time to buy. You want to buy at this point. You don't want to be buying at this point. It's not a good idea. This is a premium price area. You want to buy at discount, not premium. I hope you get the gist. So I'm going to be ending this video here for today, and I'm going to be keeping you guys updated on what is going on everything as soon as they come up. By the way, if you want to see everything that I'm doing in the markets, you want to see all the trades that I'm taking, you should join my private group. Access fee is just $3, or you can take any of my programs in order to learn how to analyze this market by yourself. At the end of the day, I think that should be the goal, you know, for you to know how to do this stuff by yourself and not necessarily be depending on somebody to show you how the market is moving. This right here is personal finance, which I think everybody should have a little bit of knowledge on. So that's all we have for today. If you enjoyed this program, make sure you smash the like button and subscribe, share, and do all that nice stuff. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.